I want to start right at the basics. What was it that drew you to graphic design?
My mother used to shut me up at church. She'd give me a piece of paper and a pencil. And one day, when I got a lot older, she wanted me to design a logo for one of her women's associations, Nigerian women's associations, and I said, yeah. And one day, I was in art class with a really good friend of mine who I actually saw just over a week ago, and he basically said, you know, your oranges are just perfect circles, and also your apples. You should become a graphic designer. And I said, okay. So that's how I started to get into it.
And then when you started getting into it, did it live up to your expectations?
I would say even more so. You know, I went to undergrad for it. I also went to graduate school at Yale for it. And I think then I started to appreciate it even more, because it's not just the aspect of the ability to communicate with that craft. It's also looking at it from a point of view that is theoretical and critical thinking, new appreciations of how to communicate to yourself, but also looking inward, a little bit like an artist, and projecting that out in a fashion that allows nearly everybody to comprehend what you're doing behind the scenes, that you're not taking the praise at all. And now it's really become even more than that.
And how would you say, like, from the beginning of your career to now, has the field changed? Maybe with that aspect.
Yeah, well, I was taught in this sort of international style, or you could say Swiss style, of graphic design. But also you bring to that particular style and function your own ideals. And I think it's because of what I learned at Yale, looking into oneself to determine a greater whole, and also things that what my father had told me before I actually went off to a master's. It's becoming so much more intriguing. So much more exciting and and creative. It's just not like this is a particular grid structure, it's a Swiss structure, it's a German structure, it's a British structure. No, it's
redefining.
It's redefining
all of these terms.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we're just at the preface of this.
Is it sometimes, like, how do you divide your time between designing and being a partner at Pentagram? Is it ever difficult to kind of find that balance of creativity, but also being a business person,
right.
You know what I mean?
You know, giving a bit of the context, you know, Pentagram is made up of 23 individuals or partners that have their own teams. We're a sort of collective partnership. The largest independent design firm in the world, and our clients are, you know, ranging from exceedingly small to massive, trying to determine or eke out time to actually really focus on a design piece that I may actually just do on my own. It does take time, but I think it really comes from sort of self-motivation. If I didn't do that, I think I would die. These sort of self-initiated projects really allow you, either from a research and development point of view, a theoretical point of view, and it's super important. And when those ideas actually start to resonate into some of the projects that we can achieve for clients, I'm exceedingly happy.
And like, I'm assuming that a lot of like opportunities come like on your desk, and I'm really wondering like
they do.
Yeah, so I'm wondering like, how do you choose what to take and what projects to take and what to pass on? Like, do you have certain criteria for that?
Yeah, you know, the criteria is wide ranging. You know, on ethical sort of points of view, you know, we're very much. You could say on a socialist basis in Pentagram. And we've had conservatives come in and talk to us. And we just say, by all means, thank you for coming, but we can't really help you. We do a fair amount of research into our clients So now we really go into it. When we get these particular briefs to write a proposal, we're like, okay, let's stop. Let's see if there are any massive red flags, because you have to. And we've found tons, and we've had to say, no, denied.
Which is a really privileged position to be in also.
Yeah, very, very, very much so. I think that, I recently did, and this was very difficult for me. I did an airline, right? But in Nigeria, a local airline. And I'm Nigerian, as I said, stated before. And I said to myself, this isn't very good for the aspects of climate change. But when you think about how a developing country needs to travel, also how much effect they have had on the aspects of the climate crisis is actually very minimal. You start to say, okay, I will help you here, but I won't help if it was British or American or who have caused so much issues. This airline's value-added airline, so it's a cheap airline. Within the research, they wanted people who can't even read to be able to travel. They may have the money, but they have the ability to actually travel to another distance. And that's important. You can't travel on the roads. There's bandits on the roads. There's bandits on the trains. What are you going to do?
And you also contributed to a book that I believe came out earlier this year.
Called
The Black Experience in Design.
Yeah, the Black Experience in Design.
That puts the work of 70 Black designers side by side, kind of as a moment of cultural reflection, I want to say.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a bit more about about the project and what your contribution consisted of?
Yeah, so I got an email one day about contributing to this book. At first, it was to do the foreword. I was very happy that this was coming forth. I didn't know how many contributors there were in the book and the essay until I started talking to the authors. So, in a sense, I was like, how does one write a foreword? What really goes into writing a foreword of a book such as this? Can I get samples of this book? And then I realized how many how many essays there were, how many authors, and that's a really amazing thing. Some of them I knew, and some of them I did not know. And I think the impression that it brought to me was that there's only less than 3% of designers in America are Black. Less than 3%. So in
was
leadership,
that something that surprised you?
No, it surprised a lot of people. But I'm like, well, look around you.
Yeah.
And then in leadership, there's less than 1%. That's nuts. And so having so many different designers in this book and what they're trying to explain, and also theorists as well, was fantastic in so many different areas. And so I said to myself, maybe it should be about my experience as a designer and the sense of optimism that one can actually garner from it. And thus it was not a forward, it was an afterward. Pretty much about the struggle of my parents being migrants in the 60s, coming to the United Kingdom, to the mother country, where the mother country was really rejecting them. And just all the conflicts and the riots, and just having 3 children there, through that time, having my father leave to Nigeria in the late early 80s to go back because there was no work in Britain for an educated Black man. And so him leave when I was 5 and he came back when I was 19. What he said to me was really important before I left to go to Yale. He talked about his time in advertising in Britain. He was dealing with copywriting a bit. He talked to me in my family kitchen, our family kitchen, and he said, design is spiritual. It's a way of life. And I've been trying to, for 26 years, I've been trying to unravel that, only sort of I think, figuring it out right now. And for me, the essay was a sort of heartfelt story, but the idea of optimism for everybody else and talking about the definition of what design is. I said design is all about the desired outcome based on its freed of its constraints through rational thinking, creative application, and appraisal, right? Okay. To create a progressive and transformative outcome.
And now what I want to know is, is that then the definition of design or good design?
That is the definition of design.
Okay.
I don't like the term good design due to the fact that design, if you really think about it, everybody says design's about solving problems. Okay, why is it that you have an iPhone or an Android phone that supposedly we've designed the problem, so why do the apps keep changing and updating? Why is that the case in point? The idea of a chair, the invention of the chair, the design of a chair, but why does the chair always keep changing? So being progressive, being transformative is really good. It is really the good thing about it. The idea of good design is there is still that sort of subjective element towards it. So it's really hard to determine that. And so from that point of view, if you take the idea of spirituality, which is about taking an idea, taking an experience, being selfless, right? And transcendent, and connecting it to a larger force and a binding force that brings everybody together, it's so powerful. And we don't, as people, we don't really see that as well. We don't talk about it. We just say design, good design, or the empowerment of design. It's like, well, no, from a spiritual standpoint, this is healthier for us. It's healthier for the planet. And we're doing these things for that particular reason. And then also connecting it to the communities that need transformation and progression. Thus, Black communities, and that's what I was writing about.
Oh, thank you so much for that answer. Really interesting. I also want to know, you've been an established designer for some years now. Is there still something on your bucket list? Is there something you really, want to explore?
There is something on my bucket list. I don't know if it will ever happen. It is establishing, I don't know what you call it. You could say it on one level, a place in Nigeria or Africa or West Africa, which is educational, which is a kind of equivalent to a modern day Bauhaus for like-minded, young like-minded designers. You could say it's like a school, but it serves the community more so. So it starts on a very micro level, and then it starts to expand, even to the point of design policy and policy making within that community, that state, that country. So it starts to echo more so.
We're at an event right now called What Design Can Do. And so I have to ask you, what do you think is a graphic designer's role in society?
It really is the aspects of truthful communication and relaying that message to everybody that will notice or listen. It's there to fundamentally transform you, thus you become engaged, and that it compels you to try to change others, and also at the same time to have fun.
And then one last question. In the next decade, what is something that we can achieve? I was going to say good design, but now I'm just going to say design. What is something that we can achieve with design, and what should designers do to get us there?
We need to prophesize what design is to all communities and how it can change and become the betterment of those for society on so many different levels. It's imperative that we do that. It can become part of people's way that they live. and they become more appreciative of that. And I find it possible. I think it is possible. We always, as designers, sort of try to take the back seat, but we've got to take it to these communities and change it. I would like to, and there is initiatives right now in the US and abroad that is changing the aspects of the education of design, starting from middle school or even elementary school, for all kids, and what they can do with it. That's positive. That's really positive. So they don't feel scared. One of the things that you have in America is systemic racism, but also economic hardship, and design is expensive to go into. And so how do we break that idea by the likes of myself and my other partners and other designers who are well known, who also are teachers in well-known schools, to actually say, wait, I was teaching that school, but I'll also teach in this school. And this school is at the grassroots level, in a location that is deprived, so they get the same educational outcome as others do.
Yeah.
Opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here today. I'm really looking forward to your speech.
Oh.
You already gave us a little hint.
I did.
So yeah, thanks for your time.
No, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.